Good afternoon, everyone. This is Toby, the Kilted Adventurer. I'm going to be talking about something this afternoon that is not very comfortable. And it is called to do the uncomfortable. One thing for me that's uncomfortable is a live stream, especially one that I don't have scheduled with another content creator. So, talking to myself or one other, hey Moose, thank you for joining today, can be uncomfortable, but that's okay. So, what I'm going to do today to help facilitate this, and hopefully there'll be some other folks be able to join the conversation as we get this going, is I'm going to be looking at an article that was published by Forbes.com called 15 Uncomfortable Things That High Achieving People Aren't Afraid to Do. So, let's jump right in. The number one thing that high achieving people are not afraid to do, and I've talked about this before in a video I did called The Viking Mindset, was to be or seek discomfort. So change is going to come with discomfort always. That's part of change. That's part of growth. Whether you are learning to run or doing a physical activity, or whether it's learning a new skill. What I talked about in the Viking Mindset video, as it relates to seeking discomfort, is we live a very comfortable life in America, especially. We have air conditioned homes, air conditioned cars, climate controlled environment. Most of us have 3 meals a day to eat. So, seeking discomfort in a controlled environment helps a part of the brain that, when stress comes, and it will come, and it has come again, we have been uncomfortable so that we can seek that challenge. Thank you for those who are watching live today. We are talking about 15 uncomfortable things that high achieving people do. Please feel free to participate in the chat. We will be moderating that today. So, as long as you can respect community guidelines, I'd love to have a robust conversation on the topic of being uncomfortable to achieve a higher goal. This article says, rather than trying to constantly chase feelings that make you comfortable and happy all the time, high achieving people do uncomfortable things that a lot of people are unwilling to do. It's that most people don't lack the drive to do those things, but most people lack the willingness to be uncomfortable, at least for a season. It is very uncomfortable here today. It is 98 degrees, so I am drinking ice water. The number two thing that is uncomfortable but high achieving people do is they tolerate feelings that most people suppress. So, what does this mean? Fear can be seen as an unpleasant emotion or feeling. What about loss or failure or tragedy? All those things can be very uncomfortable. But high achieving people understand that you have to face your fear. Courage is not the lack of fear, but it's pressing through even when you're afraid. Failure, we will talk about a little bit later, but people who achieve in the long run are not afraid of that emotion and all the emotions that come along with failure. Tragedy. Tragedy is going to be in each of our lives at some point. I've heard it said you're either coming out of a tragedy, you're currently in the middle of a tragedy, or you will be facing one very soon. So, rather than being afraid of those emotions, why not embrace them? The article goes on to say high achieving people do not let their worst fears or failures, don't allow themselves to be governed by those. So, what does govern mean? To me, govern means to rule over, to set on top of. So those feelings are valid. We all have them. Do we let them govern our lives, or do we govern those feelings? Again, I thank you for the several that are watching live today. Please feel free to participate in the chat. I would like for this to be as good of a conversation as possible today. We are talking about doing the uncomfortable. So let's see if you can break your comfort zone and participate in the live chat today. How about number 3, unexpected challenges? High achieving people test their boundaries, and once they hit what they thought was impossible and question those boundaries, many times surpass those boundaries. I know from personal experience this year, I trained for 5 months and broke some boundaries that I never thought I could break before. It had to do with physical training in this instance. But what I didn't realize is, hello, Northern Girl Hobbies. You're doing some canning today. Let me figure out, let's see, there we are. I hope you had some great vegetables this year. Tomatoes are my favorite. Everybody knows that. That's been around me for a minute. But anyway, I hope your garden has done well. It's been very dry and very uncomfortable here today. And we're talking about challenges that people overcome, things that they do that is uncomfortable. Gardening could be a good example of that. Perhaps it's easier to go to the store, but we all know that a homegrown tomato is much better. So to wrap up number 3, unexpected challenges, high motivated, achieving people learn from those unexpected challenges, and rather than being defeated or deflated by them, maximize their success and move on to that next goal. Here is a very uncomfortable thing: being corrected. The Bible actually talks a lot about this, that only a fool will not take correction. If you love someone, you will correct them in love. But being corrected can be very uncomfortable. Too much rain lately. Well, that is the opposite of what we have had. So I'm glad you're going to have some great homegrown tomatoes. That sounds delicious. We are in one of the hottest summers here in East Tennessee that I've experienced in many years. So there certainly has been a number of opportunities to be uncomfortable. This week I was corrected, and I was corrected in a spirit of trying to help me move forward. So high achieving people do not allow their egos to stand in the way of that correction. Rather than being insulted that they must always, or we must always be the smartest one in the room or the wisest one, maybe an uncomfortable thing that will help us to continue to achieve and grow is to allow others to speak into our lives and learn from that. Hello, relentless pursuit of shade. It is a great topic, listening, catching up on work. One thing you want to say is high achieving people may still have fear, but they don't let them hold that back. That is so well stated. We all have fear and anxiety. In fact, I just listened to a study that said anxiety is at an all-time high in the United States of America. There's probably a lot of reasons for that. That's not the point of this live stream today. But we do have to look at those fears and decide, is this a real fear or a false fear? A real fear could be touching a hot stove. We learn early on that's painful. Or is fear false evidence appearing real? False evidence appearing real. That's something we always have to evaluate. Here's another uncomfortable thing that the older I have gotten, the easier this has gotten, but it's still not easy. So Northern Girl Hobby says that pushing forward and getting it done. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How about number 5, though, being disliked? Sometimes, oftentimes, for no logical reason. People are going to judge you and have opinions about you. Opinions are like different body parts, and they don't always smell very good, but everyone has one. So I guess what I'll have to say about opinions is have a very small circle of people in your life that are allowed to speak into your life, and I'll even say to hurt you. It is hard to trust. When that trust is broken, it is hard to trust again. I've experienced that before. I am daring to trust again because we need other people. Other people, I've heard it said, are the emergency fund for life. But you're not going to accomplish anything without being disliked. This article goes on to say that the only variable on whether or not you'll achieve your potential is not doing what will shield you from being a target, but moving forward anyway. I really like number 6. I've actually responded in an interview situation professionally before on this. An uncomfortable thing for high achieving people is not having a 5, 10, or 25-year plan. So there is a degree of risk. Now, I'm not saying that we should act like there's no tomorrow, that holy YOLO thing, you only live once. That's reckless. Adults devise a plan and follow it. Children do what feels right. However, 5 years ago, it was 2018. Would anybody have guessed the last 5 years would look like they do now? The answer is no. Nobody will argue that fact. So, understanding that you have to plan like you will live forever and live like there's tomorrow, but being flexible enough when things change to being okay with that thing changing. I had to read a book a number of years ago called Who Moved My Cheese? It was, if I remember right, about rats in the maze, and the cheese got moved, and the rats adapted. And it's kind of a quirky scientific analogy, but the point was when someone moves your cheese, when things don't go according to your plan, let's all be flexible enough in knowing next year maybe you will get back on that plan, or maybe your plan will look completely different than it looks today. Again, thank you for all who have joined in the last few minutes. The chat is open. If you want to converse about this or anything else, I would love to hear from you. Number 7, uncomfortable things that high achieving people, they're not afraid of being criticized. So some people, and I know I have before, let criticism defeat them. High achieving people don't view that as an attack on their character, but rather feedback. Now, we just said a minute ago that you're not going to be universally liked. Some people are going to criticize you out of a spirit of either hatred or jealousy or some of those negative feelings. But rather than letting that defeat you, think, is there truth to that? Is their perception actually my reality? I'll give you an example. A number of years ago, I went through a professional development program. And at the end of that program, the people that I went through that program with, we had to give each other honest and open and candid feedback. The feedback I received, I'll be honest, it hurt. And I thought, no, I'm not that way. But then it occurred to me, if a large enough number of these people felt that I was coming across that way, whether that was my intent or not, that was their reality. So, allowing myself to be criticized, thinking about that, wondering, is there any truth to that, allowed for a course correction. Number 8, uncomfortable thing, being misunderstood. Now, this one can hurt, especially when it's friends or family that you care about. First of all, as I said earlier, everyone doesn't get a vote in your life. There are people in my life who have a right to speak into my life. Others, if they take that opportunity without first being given permission, I have a hard boundary on that. But even in that group that is allowed to speak into my life, sometimes you're misunderstood. 3 years ago, when I started this channel and started taking videos of all the hiking I was doing, because I am such a, by nature, private person, that was very much misunderstood. And I'm sure it is some today. But it wasn't for vanity. It was because I have a passion for the outdoors, for physical activity, and for adventure. And I wanted to share that with others. So those who misunderstand, as we say in the South, God bless your heart. That is a part of what's required, however, to be able to achieve anything. Number 9, uncomfortable things that high achieving people do. They apologize when they are wrong. This is something that some of us have to do much more than others. I see a thumbs up here. Apologize when we're wrong. Yes. It's not about ego. It's not about always being right. It's about learning from others. But also, if we have harmed someone else, or if we came across in a way that was not congruent with either our intent or what we meant to say in that situation, we should be the bigger person and apologize. Number 10, and this is one that I really like a lot of uncomfortable things. Admit when you do not know. I've heard it say that the beginning of wisdom is 3 words. I don't know. Let me ask you this, and I've experienced this a number of times. Have you ever been in a situation where somebody is, quite frankly, just speaking out of their backside? You know they're full of crap and they don't know what they're talking about, but they continue to talk to hear their own self. We'll call that the BS meter. Some people's is strong, some people's is not. I think it takes a bigger person and long term a person who is going to go further in life to admit when you don't know the answers to something. Starting with I don't know, or let me find out, or let's learn together. That will allow us collectively to not come across as know-it-alls, but also have that growth mindset. So that requires a willingness to say, I don't know. But I also like, but let's find out, or let me check. Number 11, things that are uncomfortable but will lead to success. Striving for progress, not perfection. Progress over perfection. Perfect can be the enemy of good. Often people who don't feel in control feel like they need that perfection or else they are a failure. It can hold you back to nitpick at the small details. I would rather be 80% toward my goal than try to be 100% and constantly failing and constantly down and constantly hard on myself. So let's strive for that progress. Perfectionism doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't make you more driven. It actually can hold you back. So let's keep making progress together. Number 12 out of the 15 uncomfortable things, the opinions of anyone that you wouldn't want to switch places with. I'm going to read this for a minute and let's figure this one out together. The adage that other people's opinions don't matter holds true to some degree. However, high achieving people value the opinions of others, and they even take the advice of people that they necessarily wouldn't want to switch places with, but they understand that there is value in that advice. Let's see, we've had a couple folks join. Hey, Tommy, giving up control to others around you so that you look even more successful. Yes, we grow together. That's right. Northern Girl Hobby, my mother was a perfectionist. I was until several years ago. It can definitely hold you back. I was in many ways as well. I'll admit to having those tendencies even today. But progress over perfection. And then this number 12 is opinions of others, even those that you view very differently from yourselves. I have learned that people from other ethnic groups, other backgrounds, even other faiths, other value systems, they hold wisdom that I can learn from and then hold it up against the standard, which for me is the Word of God, so that I can see if that holds value in my life or not. Number 13, uncomfortable thing, letting things go. Have you ever had a situation where you're trying to achieve something and it doesn't work the way you planned on it working right away? But because you really had that plan, you're grasping it so tightly, it ends up making your plan fail in the end. What if instead we discarded our preconceived thoughts, we let some of the minor things go, that progress over perfection, like we were talking about a moment ago, and move toward the final goal, letting those smaller things that were important to us in the beginning step aside. I've heard it said in business that you're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels. Sometimes you got to let the nickels go so you can reach your greater goal. Two more. Again, thank you for joining me on this live stream today. If you joined late, if you could do me a favor and go back and watch from the beginning. I am trying to do more of these to build watch hours. I reached 1,000 subscribers recently. YouTube continues to put ads on my videos, and they keep 100% of the proceeds. So I think it's time they share that, and the only way we can do that is through watch hours. So thank you for watching this today. I appreciate that. Number 14, uncomfortable thing that high-achieving people do is they fail. Failing is not the worst thing in the world. It's not the end of your career. Most of the time, it's not the end of your life. I've heard it said you only fail when you quit trying. In addition to that, I would add, let's try to fail forward. So it's okay to make mistakes. Sometimes you make no mistakes and you still fail. But let's try not to make the same ones over and over again. Let's try to learn so that we can fail forward. And believe me, these are the 15 things that I am working through myself. So I haven't got all the answers, but I am working through them with you. Northern Girl Hobby says we learn from our failures. Yep, we do. We learn from our failures if we're wise. If we're like the Israelites, we'll go around the same mountain for 40 years. And then finally, number 15 is living as other people won't. This is things that highly achieving people do. They live as other people won't. So later on, they can live as other people can't. I've heard Dave Ramsey say many times that you live like no one else. So later you can live and give like no one else. Tommy says failure is the elimination of what doesn't work. That's right. If something isn't working, you don't keep trying that and going back to it. That is the definition of insanity. To conclude this number 15, living as other people won't. So later you can live as other people can't. You have to be willing to make the sacrifices, the discipline, face the challenges, be uncomfortable, put up with other people's opinions, not be liked by everyone, and sometimes not by most. But later on, These things, according to this author, and I think I agree with most of what she's presupposed, will lead you to a ultimately more comfortable life. A couple of things that are coming up on the channel, and then I am going to conclude this broadcast. Thank you so much for joining me today. Monday, I am doing a kilt review for my new Scottish National Weathered tartan kilt. I took that out this weekend and went to some fantastic waterfalls. So Monday, that is coming out. Next Friday, 10 facts about the University of Texas. It's a fantastic university in Austin, Texas. So even if you're not a Longhorns fan, stay tuned for that. And then finally, there will be in a couple of weeks, High Falls in Alabama. Did some wild swimming out there this weekend. Got some fantastic footage. It was very low volume, but very beautiful. So stay tuned for those. Thank you for joining me today on this live stream. Click that thumbs up if you don't mind. Share this with others. If you have time to watch one of the playlists, maybe waterfalls, maybe Tennessee State Parks, maybe Kilted Hiking Adventures, play that for a little while. Help me with those watch hours. I really appreciate it. Have a blessed Saturday. Get together with friends. And if you attend church, make sure and do that tomorrow on Sunday. And as always, seek adventure. Goodbye.